Hello everyone, my name is Thomas Lundmark. I'm going to be talking about how I decided to, and why I decided to write a biography of Eva Braun. The purpose of this is to give you a little background in the research that I did, both legal and historical, that will fit into this module on research, approaches to research. And while we often don't think about this as students because a topic is assigned to students rather than students being able to choose a topic, when you get into your own research, whether it's maybe for another module, and particularly if you get into academia, you'll have pretty free rein on what to choose for a topic. And my topic was maybe an odd one, Eva Braun, and I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for this. I just want to give you my personal background. That's what this is about. And what it ended up in my research is actually publishing 3 different versions of a biography, which I'll mention in a couple minutes, but the main version, the one I'll be referring to in the course of this week in our lectures and my talks and also our discussions, is my biography of Eva Braun, Life and Times. But by way of background, I'd like to tell you that I spent, now not full-time, but basically 20 years researching, analyzing, and writing about the life and times of Eva Braun, and also her death. And as you may know, Eva Braun ended up marrying Hitler shortly before the two of them committed suicide. My interest in Eva Braun probably goes back to my high school German classes, and particularly to one of the best teachers I ever had, Mr. Knott. He sketched how Hitler came to power. And by the way, I was a high school student. I'm not exactly sure all that he told us, but this, I think, is basically what he said. He spoke about the nationalism in Germany that led up to the First World War. Among other things, Germany wanted colonies, their place in the sun. And then, after losing the war, the devastating provisions of the Treaty of Versailles. By the way, the United States did not agree with that. Not that that would have made any difference historically, but it's one of the many things I learned while doing research for this book. In part due to the conditions of the Treaty of Versailles, there was spiraling inflation in the 1920s in Germany. The story is told that if in restaurants you'd have to pay cash, and sometimes the price of a beer would go up while you're still in the restaurant. The only minority of any consequence in Germany at the time were the Jews. They're actually quite a small number of Jews in Germany, we would say today, but they were identifiable as being not German, not ethnically German, and many people blamed the Jews for the inflation. For many people, they were seen as profiting from the inflation as well. They tended to be professional people, many Jews and prominent ones, and in academia, and they were hurt less than other people, it was seen. And it was not only Hitler, but many people blamed the Jews. They were obvious scapegoats. Now, Mr. Knott never said this in so many words, but I had the impression from his explanation of the history, and not only from him, but there are also other people who contend this, that the Jews just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Historically, that's not true. Okay, there was a lot more to that, and that explanation bothered me, and I even was bothered by. Do you mean the pogroms, the extermination camps, is just because they were scapegoats? Right? It has to be something more to it. Now, I should maybe add to the story that the personal dimension. My father, Gustav Lundmark, served in the United States Navy in the Pacific during World War II. One of my mother's brothers, my dear uncle and a second father to me, Omer Ellingson, fought his way across southern Germany with the 103rd Cactus Infantry Division of the United States Army. And Omer's elder brother, Irvin, died in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. And by the way, at the mention of his name, my mother, who was a smiling, happy person, would break into tears. So we didn't mention my uncle's name. Of course, I was born after the war. Maybe that's not clear to you, but I was, and I never knew him. But he's played a major role in the life of my mother's family. While I was still in high school, and I didn't have a lot of extra money, I was working jobs to earn some money, I bought a copy in English of Mein Kampf and started reading it. And Hitler, in Mein Kampf, describes the Jews as the advance guard of an Asian horde who are going to populate the world with their own subspecies. Now, in the parlance of the National Socialists, they use the word race for, as we would too, we do today for African race, Asian race, and that. But they were using it as a more defined term as a subspecies, we'd say today. And their contention was that just as animals are in a competition in the forest or in the jungle to see which is at the top of the heap, same thing is true with subspecies, that in the end there could be only one. Right? There'd be one at the top. And everyone who ascribes to this theory, racist theory, thought that their own race or subspecies, right, should be on top. So what he also did, Hitler and others, blamed Jews for spreading syphilis, pacifism, Marxism, and the idea was that they saw this as the Jews were trying to weaken Germans, right, through this way, even by teaching Judeo-Christian ideas. So this type of ethnic evolution in many people still survives, and it was very, very strong, and it was supported in Germany and elsewhere by a lot of academics. Many years later, after I'd been researching this, Hitler's rise to power, it occurred to me that I might be able to tell that story through the eyes of somebody who participated in it and had, a view, was sitting up in the front of the auditorium, so to speak. And I thought of Eva Braun and wondered what was with her anyway. What did she see in Hitler? What did the other Germans see in Hitler? And I picked up the first biography of Eva Braun by Naren Gun, G-U-N, and it's provocatively entitled Eva Braun, Hitler's, I've got it written down here, mistress. Now, by the way, that's its title in English, not in German. Okay, we'll get to that in one of the later talks. One thing that bothered me in reading that little book is Naren Gun's dismissive attitude towards Eva Braun's suicide attempts. It even angered me. And I asked myself, how could a happy, fun-loving, well-adjusted young woman, the way that Gun described Eva Braun, how could she get mixed up with Hitler in the first place, much less commit suicide with him? And I set out to answer that question against the background of Hitler's rise. At first, after doing the research, which we'll talk about later, not today, I published sort of a dramatized version of my research called The Untold Story of Eva Braun, Her Life Beyond Hitler. The most significant facts revealed in that book were that Eva Braun suffered from chronic depression, right, hence the suicide attempts, and also from Meyer Rokitansky Küster Hauser syndrome, or Meyer Rokitansky, or MRKH, which meant that she could not have children. Now, some people criticized the book, including a judge acquaintance of mine who read it, because I didn't present everything in chronological order. Also, some people didn't like that I was spending so much time on the history, on the political background. So what I did, the following year, I published a shorter chronological version called Her Kampf, right? Eva Braun's Centenary. Kampf, like Hitler's Mein Kampf. And that is a kind of lighter version in the sense that it doesn't contain the historical, the political background. Now, all of these books are my attempt to present all of the relevant facts about Eva Braun in an objective, impartial manner. There might be some minor mistakes, but I did so much research and so carefully and footnoted the major points that I'm quite sure that they'll stand up. And what I did and had to do as a historian is connect the points, right? Connect the dots. I didn't put points in there. I didn't add dots, but I connected things, and where I did, I say that. Now, in this book, unlike the previous ones, I put in my personal observations at the end of each chapter. I left those out because I wanted to present it objectively, and it was interesting that one book agent criticized the manuscript for not having an author's voice. Well, I had read a number of other biographies that we can talk about, and I didn't like having the author intrude into the story, commenting on every step. I liked reading the story and then making my own observations. Now, that being said, in writing the story, how can one be completely impartial? May I admit to you that if I had ever met Eva Braun, I wouldn't have liked her. All right? I have a lot of understanding and compassion for her, but she isn't someone that I could really warm up to. But I tried to put her case as a lawyer in a proper light, objective light, to explain her perspective while also showing the other side. Now, in my book, I had to put in the historical and legal side, and including how the Jews and a few other groups were taken out of society, the steps that were taken, how that was done, and what people knew about that, which basically was everything except extermination camps. And because I did that because that's the story I wanted to tell, after all, right? I only used Eva Braun as a person to help me tell that story. And I ended up telling two stories. And but I also think that in order to understand Eva Braun, understand the Germans at the time, you have to know the historical, legal, political background. In the book, I also ran into some problems in translation, as anybody who's done translation would know. For example, how do you translate military ranks when even in English we use them differently? For example, in the UK, they're different. Some of them are different from in the United States, and in the different services, for example, Navy, Army. There's even captain, for example, a Navy captain is not equivalent to an Army captain. So what I did was use the German terms, and I ended up doing that quite a bit in the book. And I also added a bibliography of 800 books and sources that I'd consulted. And I ran into so many names of people, and I didn't want to interrupt the story by giving an explanation of who that person was. So I have, let me see, I think I have over 200 short biographies to help the reader, help the scholar going back doing research about Eva Braun or about other people at the time. Now, let me just say, I'm looking at my notes here. We will talk about the research that I did and maybe particularly, maybe most interestingly, the people that I interviewed. They included, for example, Hitler's maid, who was a housemaid at the Berghof, which was Hitler's retreat, mountain retreat. Interviewed her twice, and I interviewed some other people who are also very important to the story. But we'll have more time to talk about those things. I just wanted to give you this short introduction. All right? So I'll stop here and hope to be able to see you all, or else at least hear you all, in the discussions we have on Teams. Thank you.